Chief Executive John Lee slams discriminatory acts by 3 Cathay Pacific flight attendants. Foreign domestic helpers, students among those required to declare whether they have past convictions in their visa applications. And China's new ambassador to the U.S. arrives in America. Hello and welcome to TVB News. More fallout today from 3 Cathay Pacific flight attendants accused of discriminating against non-English-speaking passengers. Chief Executive John Lee slammed the behaviors for damaging the city's image. While Cathay Pacific has apologized again, the debate is just heating up on the mainland. Sharon Tang reports.
It all began when a recording was released online in which a flight attendant said a passenger would not be given a blanket if the person cannot say it right in English.
You cannot say blanket in English, you cannot have it. True.
3 cabin crew members in question have been fired by Cathay Pacific. Speaking in Guangzhou after an event, Cathay Pacific CEO Ronald Lam today apologized again, the airline company's 4th apology over the incident. He said, Cathay has zero tolerance for serious violations of company rules and ethics by individual employees. Similar incidents will not happen again. Lam admits the incident has harmed Cathay's image on the mainland and does not rule out hiring more native Putonghua speakers as flight attendants in future. Attending in the same event, Chief Executive John Lee said Cathay must make an effort to rebuild its courteous image. Lee said, these disrespectful words and deeds have hurt the feelings of Hong Kong and mainland compatriots. Lee added, I'm upset and furious. I've told Cathay's CEO that this has damaged the city's image and it should never happen again. John Lee also aired his frustration on social media Weibo. That drew over 5,000 responses within 6 hours, with many asking him to look into discrimination problems. But many mainland netizens refused to accept Cathay's apology. The Equal Opportunities Commission said the incident could constitute indirect discrimination. That's when a service provider refuses to offer an item if the customer fails to say a certain word. Lawmaker Michael Look suggested enacting an anti-discrimination law for cases involving the same race. Meanwhile, it's believed a letter has been issued by the Cathay Flight Attendants Union saying many colleagues are facing false accusations. It added that under existing service guidelines, if any photography or filming takes place without crew members' consent, they can ask the customers involved to delete the content. The union also says it hoped Cathay would defend its employees, but it ended up disappointed. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Many talent importing schemes now require applicants to disclose if they have a criminal record. The Immigration Department announced that from mid-June onwards, this will be expanded to cover most visas, including those for foreign domestic helpers, students, and more. Mainland scientist He Jiankui, who had served a prison sentence for editing the genes of embryos, was given the green light to come to Hong Kong under the Top Talent Pass scheme. It was a controversial decision, and his visa was later revoked. From June 19th, applicants such as domestic helpers, foreign talent, and those on a working holiday must declare any prior convictions. However, it does not apply to tourists, consular staff, or single-entry permit applicants. The Housing Authority has tightened its policy to stop undeserving tenants from living in public housing. The policy revisions include the requirement for all tenants to declare whether they own any local property every 2 years, starting on October 1st. Currently, only residents who have lived for 10 years in public housing need to declare whether they own any property every 2 years. The new policy is expected to affect about 300,000 public housing tenants. China has a new ambassador to the United States. Xi Feng has previously been posted twice to the Washington embassy and most recently served as a vice foreign minister, charged with overseeing policy towards the U.S. Matthew Bray with more.
The new China ambassador to America takes office amid the usual ongoing disputes: trade, the war in Ukraine, access to computer chips, to name but three. On arrival at JFK Airport in New York, the new envoy said the relations, while behind the scenes said to be warming, was still in the deep freeze.
At present, Sino-US relations is facing serious difficulties and challenges. The appointment, my appointment, means to me more than honor. Then it's a great responsibility.
Xi was the official who lodged China's formal complaint when Washington shot down what it called a Chinese spy balloon over the United States in February. China said it was a civilian airship. Xi has taken a confrontational attitude in past meetings with Biden officials, including when hosting Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman in 2021, when he issued a long list of demands for the US to improve ties. But Xi is said to be an experienced diplomat, well acquainted with some American policymakers, and may be capable of improving better communication if he chooses to do so.
We hope that the United States will work together with China to increase dialogue, to manage differences, and also to expand our cooperation so that our relationship will be back to the right track.
Another issue will be Taiwan, where the US remains the island's main source of defense cooperation and political support. Beijing regularly sends aircraft and ships into airspace and waters near the island. Dialogue has been maintained, though. Wang Yi, the director of the Office of the Central Commission for Foreign Affairs, held talks with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in Vienna earlier this month. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
China's foreign minister pressed Holland for access to advanced chip-making technology that has already been blocked on security grounds. There is no indication that the Netherlands has changed its policy on the banning of lithography machines available from only one supplier. Lack of that tool is hindering China from developing chips for smartphones, artificial intelligence, and other advanced applications. The visiting Dutch Foreign Minister Wopke Hoekstra held a 2.5-hour meeting with Qingang and raised his own concerns about cyber and national security.
Safeguarding our open, free and secure economy in cyberspace is a key priority for the Netherlands. And like China, we have a responsibility to protect our national security. And just as China protects its core interests, so we protect ours. And in that regard, I raised our concerns about cyber operations conducted from Chinese territory and reports of foreign interference operations on Dutch territory, including against journalists.
Super Typhoon Mawar aimed its fury at the tiny U.S. Pacific territory of Guam today as residents with nowhere to go hunkered down in the face of the devastating winds and torrential rain. Mawar is the strongest storm to approach the island in decades. Communities on Guam lost power and some lost water supplies as trees came down. Flash flood warnings were issued and it was too dangerous to go outside. The typhoon was packing winds of 225 kilometers per hour, with gusts peaking at 274 kilometers per hour. Mawar is expected to enter the area of the Philippines by either late Friday or early Saturday. Weather analysts say there is a high chance the typhoon will pass through the northern Luzon area of the Philippines and the southern part of Taiwan. A new study has found that New York City is sinking under the weight of all its buildings. This as the sea level around the city has been rising twice as fast as the global rate. The study aims to show how high rises in coastal, riverfront, and lakeside areas could contribute to future flood risks, and the potential impacts should be mitigated sooner rather than later. Tracy Furness has more.
Researchers calculated the mass of the 1,084,954 buildings across 5 boroughs of New York City, which covers around 777 square kilometers. The buildings collectively weigh 762 billion kilograms, equivalent to around 1.9 million fully loaded Boeing 747-400 aircraft. The study team used simulations to calculate the effects of that weight on the ground and compared it to satellite data showing actual surface geology. It revealed the city is sinking. Lead study author Tom Parsons, a research geophysicist at the US Geological Survey, said New York City is sinking by an average of 1 to 2 millimeters a year, with greater subsidence of up to 4.5 millimeters a year in some areas. A September 2022 study found that 44 of 48 most populated coastal cities in the world are sinking faster than sea levels are rising. One reason for this is that, as of 2020, the mass of human-made objects surpassed that of all living biomass. It is not just coastal cities that are sinking, inland cities too. Parsons pointed out that Jakarta is sinking so fast that the Indonesian government is planning to build a new capital city elsewhere. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Still ahead, Russia says its forces have crushed an incursion from Ukraine. HKU medical students will have the option to enroll in a 5-year program. And a gigantic luminous pearl among precious artwork on display at Art Hong Kong Expo. Welcome back. Russia says its forces shot down a large number of drones in their southern Belgorod region, a day after Moscow announced they crushed a cross-border Ukraine raid in the same area. Russia said the previous day it had beaten back one of the biggest incursions from Ukraine, with the defense ministry saying more than 70 attackers were killed in a battle that lasted around 24 hours. Ukraine denied any involvement, saying the attacks were launched by dissident Russians. Nazvi Karim has more.
This is not Ukraine. This is Belgorod in Russia, a border area around 100 kilometers north from the Kharkiv front lines. Russia's military says it has thwarted Ukraine-based and supported attacks from militants, killing dozens of attackers and sending survivors fleeing across the border back to Ukraine. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said local troops, airstrikes and artillery overwhelmed the invaders, with 4 armored combat vehicles and 5 pickup trucks destroyed. He said 12 citizens were wounded and an elderly woman died during evacuation. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said ethnic Russians live in Ukraine and insisted it was Ukrainian militias that carried out the attack. Kyiv said it had nothing to do with the attack, the second cross-border incursion since March. Moscow says Ukraine is lying. The video is aimed at proving that Moscow controlled the city after 9 months of heavy fighting that cost thousands of lives. Ukraine says its troops are still active around the city's flanks and rejects Russia's claim that Moscow is in full control. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Back locally, the University of Hong Kong's Faculty of Medicine will update its Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery programs for the 2023-24 school year. The revamped curriculum includes an option for students to enroll in a 5-year program instead of the usual 6-year option. It will further integrate education on Chinese medicine. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Students ready to join HKU's Faculty of Medicine will soon have the option to pick their own study track suitable to different learning styles. The current 6-year program consists of 2 years of preclinical courses, 1 enrichment year where students can go on exchange studies abroad or engage in overseas humanitarian work, and 3 years of clinical clerkships. But a new study track will be available for the 2023-24 school year. The 5-year pathway consists of 2 years of both preclinical courses and enrichment programs, and 3 years of clinical clerkships. The faculty stressed that the new study track does not reduce the amount of content taught to students, but instead is meant for the few who wish to finish their studies earlier.
The so-called 5-year fast track I must emphasize that the actual content has not changed. They just, instead of calling it a fast track, maybe we can call it a more compact track. Instead of doing 6 years, they do the 6 years content in 5 years. Right? We expect to have maybe just a few students, if that, entering that track.
Meanwhile, the program's new syllabus will introduce more comprehensive education on Chinese medicine. This is so students who study Western medicine could have a better understanding of the Chinese medical tradition that is becoming more internationally recognized.
You talk to your mom, your father and your uncles, etc. Many of them actually would visit both a Western as well as a Chinese medicine practitioner. It is therefore upon us to make sure that our students have a good understanding of both sides of this healthcare delivery system.
The University of Hong Kong's Faculty of Medicine said the revamped study track has a more condensed curriculum that will allow students to work in the public healthcare sector sooner. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A man caught 4 years ago for illegally owning handguns, silencers, and almost 900 rounds of ammunition was sentenced to 9 years and 9 months in prison. The incident occurred in December 2018 when the convicted man, surnamed Leung, aged 20 at the time, was found hiding the ammunition. The court said Leung was keeping the weapons and ammunition temporarily at his home on behalf of a friend. It said the bullets were kept at a location that was easily accessible, and the ammunition would pose a significant risk if it fell into the wrong hands. Featuring a gigantic luminous pearl and precious works of art, Art Hong Kong Expo opened at the Asia World Expo today. Veronica Lin was at the event.
This huge luminous pearl glistens under the lights. Unlike those in folklore, where it can be held in the palm of your hand, this not-so-hidden gem was made from 30 tons of raw material. It was shipped to Asia World Expo all the way from Jiangmen in Guangdong Province. Mr. Lai, owner of this magnificent stone, explained that these pearls come from the lava and volcanoes and are formed by minerals. Lai said that the stone itself does not emit any of its own light. However, it does send out light absorbed from external sources. He added that while he does not know much about gemstones, he bought it because he thought it was pretty.
The star of the show is this luminous pearl. The glow-in-the-dark fluorite weighs 13 tons and is 2 meters tall. The owner claims it is said to become the world's largest luminous pearl.
Most residents are also here to see this record-breaking 1.8-meter tall and 56-meter wide tanka painting. It features over 2,500 individual figures drawn by Chinese artist Sang Jianben and 60 of his apprentices over 5 years.
Because I'm very interested in the Buddhas from the Tibetan, so I will very appreciate for the tongkat.
Sang Jianben said the tongkat covers 700 years of Tibetan history. The portion of tongkat behind him depicts President Xi Jinping's visit to Tibet in 2011. Visitors can also admire the pottery and other antiques on show. Apart from local and Chinese art, the free exhibition features over 300 exhibitors from more than a dozen Belt and Road countries. Veronica Lin, TVB News.
That is the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.